Hi there. So questions being asked this morning about the treatment of Susan Boyle, who's spending a second day at a private clinic recovering from exhaustion. Critics want to know how much support she was given by the Britain's Got Talent team as the pressure grew with her worldwide popularity and extraordinary success. Late last night, Sue Jameson caught up with Judge Amanda Holden in New York.
I have no idea how long she will be resting for. I genuinely have no idea, but I understand that we've spoken to her doctors and they really have reassured us that there are no underlying mental issues, and it purely is just that she's knackered, for want of a better word. And I think, you know, as we all keep saying, to have been thrust into such a media circus for 7 weeks, it's hard enough for me, Piers and Simon to deal with, let alone somebody that's had absolutely no experience.
Do you think things might change then in the future on Britain's Got Talent, that there may be more, say, psychological screening?
That you can't kind of give every single person who's just an auditioner that kind of long-winded attention, but I think that, you know, what was done for Susan was the right thing to have done. You know, I know that they've kind of checked her out and they've spoken to people in her village, and there was no reason that we needed to check her for anything else, and I still agree with that. All these shows have to take great care, and there are kind of rules and standards that we all have to stick by, and I know that we care very much about Susan, and so that the right people are looking after her now.
Well, everyone's very worried about her, but someone I'm sure more than most is her brother, Gerry Boyle, who joins us now from Edinburgh. Good to speak to you this morning. How is she getting on?
Good morning, Kate. I spoke to Susan yesterday, and I'm happy to say that she sounded much better than the day before, which was Sunday. So I'll be hoping to speak to her later on this morning, and everything, I think, is heading in the right direction.
What do you think has led to this? Do you see it as a breakdown? Do you see it as exhaustion? Do you see it as knackered, as Amanda Holden just said? Knowing her as well as you do, what's your feeling?
I think, Kate, it's a build-up of anxiety, just the whole enormity of what's happened the past 7 weeks, and just hoping to do well. But I think on top of that, Susan is wondering now, does she have a career beyond Britain's Got Talent? Will people want to hear her sing? She didn't win the competition, as everyone knows, and where do we go from here? I think as soon as these things start to become clearer, then Susan will perk up and she'll be back to her feisty self.
Good. Well, let's hope so. I mean, one of the things that people have spoken about is that she does have some learning difficulties. I mean, you know her, obviously, and you've watched her grow up through life. Is there anything in the way she behaved during her childhood and growing up, in how she handles situations and with those learning difficulties that might have made you think, oh, I don't know whether she's going to handle this too well?
Kate, I've heard all day yesterday. I mean, I spent an entire day with the media yesterday speaking to television, not just in this country but abroad, and I have to say at the end of the evening I was rather shattered myself. So Susan has been in the middle of this for 7 weeks. Now, on the subject of learning difficulties, she gets anxious, she has a bit of a problem with building up to things. I remember that when she was at school, when her exams approach, she tends to take things terribly seriously. But, I have to say that Susan's learning difficulties amaze me, because I've never heard of them before, because as far as I'm concerned, she has all the academic qualifications that everybody else has.
Right, OK. I mean, the other thing is, I suppose, is from your perspective, is there any bit of you that thinks, I wish she'd never done this competition? Or do you think, great?
Oh, absolutely not. No, but knowing Susan so well, she's been telling us for years that she wants to be taken seriously as a singer, and I think we have to be absolutely fair to Britain's Got Talent. They've now given her the opportunity to go ahead and do just that. So no regrets. I know that she'll bounce back in a few days, and as I say, once people start to talk to her about where her career goes now, and she knows that she has a career and the public are still keen to hear her sing, then everything will be well.
OK, Gerry, don't go away. We've got Dr. Funke Baffour, a clinical psychologist, with us. Sorry, to make sure I get the official title right. Interesting what Gerry had to say, that he obviously knows her very well. Have you got concerns about someone who seems to be displaying the sort of behaviour Susan is? Do you have concerns about that?
I think we need to bear in mind that there were signs of stress were beginning to show. I think last week she wanted to pull out of the show, and I think during those times one needs to consider, is she ready for the show? And she had the breakdown after the show, and it might have been the way that she actually processed it. I mean, I know that Gerry said she hasn't got a learning difficulties, and there has been some reports. But people with learning difficulties, they have problems with processing information.
So they might get more stressed and more anxious than other people might.
And Gerry did say when she was young, she used to get, build up, and when she felt anxious. So she might have been quite an anxious person generally.
Yeah.
But people do cope.
And also, well, I suppose you've worked on Big Brother, you've worked on other shows. What sort of degree and how far do we go in terms of television companies having responsibility? Do you ban people with learning difficulties, or ban people displaying signs of not being able to cope with fame from taking part? Where do you step in?
I think first and foremost we should never discriminate anyone if they've got a learning difficulties or mental health problem. But what we should do is assess if they're able to actually cope with the situation of being on Britain's Got Talent. And for Susan Boyle, did they assess her properly? I know that Amanda Holden said we can't assess.
Every single person comes through
I
the door.
understand that, but when they're on live TV, I think everyone should be assessed comprehensively.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if that actually occurred.
All right, okay, good to speak to you, and good to speak to you as well, Gerry. Do give her our best, won't you, when you speak to her, because we're all wishing her well, and I'm sure
Thanks very much.
she has a great career ahead of her if she can just get her problems sorted out now.
I'm sure. We'd love to say thank you to you as well.
All right, it's good to speak to you. Thanks very much indeed.